welcome to Africa on this journey across the world and 24-hour event. It's great to have everyone joining us from sunny Africa. We've got a couple of people in studio that's going to be talking, and I'll introduce the team in a minute. And then we've also got Yania. We've got Yania from West Africa that's also going to be joining us, and then a couple of guys in studio itself. So what we're going to take you through today, there's going to be three presentations mainly, and we want to take you on a little bit of a story, right? And the story is really, how do you embed AI in your organization? We're going to start off with how have we built a culture of innovation, and how do you build a culture of innovation within your organization? We're going to talk a little bit around the culture, how you do it, and the approach that we've taken. Vanessa Saker is going to talk you through that. Sitting next to me. We're then going to hand over to William Rich, which is our highly experimental unit leader. And he'll talk through a little bit around what is the highly experimental unit, how does it work, and what do we do with it? And how do we, as soon as we've created the culture of innovation, how do we then actually innovate technically, and how does he and his team actually do it? Then I'm going to hand over to Yania and Renai. Both of them are going to take us through a platform that we've developed. And that really is how have we used the innovation, the culture, the highly experimental units, and how have we made that practically possible? And how have we done that in creating a solution and a product that both us as Deloitte, but also our clients are using on a daily basis. And then lastly, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Quentin Williams. And he's really going to talk us through how do we productionalize it, how do we do the ML ops, how do we make sure that it's robust and in the organization and embed it in the organization. So it's great for me to have everyone here. I hope you enjoy it. If you do have questions or comments, please just pop it in the chat. We'll try and answer them as we go through. I'm hoping we're going to get through all of it as we go through it. I've already introduced the team, so I'm not going to take any more time doing that. I think we want to get straight into the actual meat of it. And then there is going to be a little bit of movement as I stand up and other guys come in, so just bear with us as we go through that. So without further ado, I think that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Vanessa to talk us through about how do we actually build a culture of innovation.
Thanks, Basil. So I actually wanted to start off with a quote. See if our clicker's working.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Oh, is it? Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties with the clicker. It seems to be a little bit over my pay grade. All right, and this is actually a quote from Bridget Jones's diary. I will not sulk about having no boyfriend, but develop inner poise and authority and sense of self as woman of substance, complete without boyfriend as best way to obtain boyfriend. Which is a bit of a strange quote to start off with, really. And what does Bridget Jones have to do with innovation? The way I often describe it as when you focus on innovation, often you focus too much on innovation. You focus on innovation for innovation's sake. But like Bridget Jones has learned, the best way to achieve something is to focus on building the best possible self that you can. And that's essentially what we've done with our culture. We've focused on building a culture that supports innovation as the best way of encouraging innovation. So if you have a look at our pillars, we start off with purpose. Simon Sinek says that people come together when they share a shared why. Start with why. And when you have a shared why, you're almost guaranteed success because you're all pulling in the same direction. Jim Collins in Good to Great has a very similar view. He says, great companies happen when you have good people on the same bus heading in the same direction. And really, that is what our purpose is. As a firm, we've spent a lot of time on purpose. And as an Africa digital business, we've spent a lot of time trying to understand our why. And our why, I think we've eventually boiled it down as something that we want to have to lead and inspire our clients. We want to inspire them to greatness. We want to be their support on the journey. We often say that we are Gandalf in this and not Frodo. We are the person that guides you there and leads you there, but we are not the hero of the story. Generally, our clients are. So that is really the underpinning of our culture. We then have these three things that rest on top of that. The first one is freedom. And freedom is really just another name for autonomy, for accountability. It is giving the people in our business the autonomy to decide not only what they do, but also how they do it. What they want to focus on, how they want to focus on it. And that is about setting your own goals and then delivering on them as well. The second one is mastery. So if you're going to create a culture for innovation, you also want people to be the master of themselves. Back to Bridget Jones, in order to get a boyfriend, you need to focus on yourself and be the best possible self that you can be. And the same is true here. We want each of our people in our team to self-actualize, to get to the top of where they're going, to continually learn, to continually push themselves. And in that way, you create a culture as a team where we are completely and continually pushing the boundaries. And then the last one is feedback. We really do believe that constant feedback, and not just feedback from senior management, from our directors, but feedback from our clients, feedback from the guys underneath us, feedback from our teams. Peer-to-peer feedback is actually really important. And so as a team, we try and encourage that as much as possible and put processes into place that allows for that. And hopefully when you've got these three together, underpinned by a purpose, that's when great innovation happens. And on that note, thinking about innovation, I want to introduce Will, who I think is a good product of our innovation. Will actually leads our highly experimental unit, which actually comes out of the culture. And I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm William, and I'm the leader of the highly experimental unit, and I'm also an AI engineer. So today I want to introduce the highly experimental unit to you. But first, I want to remind you about the importance of innovation. So I don't want to tell you about the stories of Blockbuster and Kodak that you've heard 1,000 times. But let me tell you about some more recent examples of companies that failed to innovate. If you look at the obituaries of companies that didn't survive the COVID-19 pandemic, you'll see that a common characteristic of many of these companies is that they are companies that failed to innovate during this incredibly difficult time. So this is my first point. Innovation is evolution. If you're not innovating, then your business is possibly not evolving. The economy is evolving, but is your business evolving? If you want to evolve, you must focus on innovation. The second point I want to make is that innovation isn't just about survival, but companies that innovate are companies that thrive. Those who pay the price, those who invest in innovation, are those that will really make a difference in the market. They're those that will really reap the rewards of their investment. Innovation isn't just something that you give to your creative people to make them feel better about themselves. Innovation is really going to cause your company to succeed. So let me tell you about my team called the Highly Experimental Unit. And this is how we've been doing innovation at Deloitte. In a nutshell, our team does highly experimental work. So that means we take on high-risk projects. We take projects on that possibly won't succeed. I won't call them failures, because an experiment is just something that you're trying to see if it's plausible, right? Okay, so there's two groups of people that make up our team. On the one hand, we have industry experts, which we leverage in the Deloitte network, because we're not here to solve academic problems. We're here to solve real problems at our clients. The other kind of component in our team is that there are a number of AI engineers, there's data science experts, real nerds like me that love taking the cutting edge AI technology that's available and bringing them to our clients to solve real problems. We also leverage people in academia. We're starting to foster some relationships with universities in Southern Africa because we realize that there's a wealth of resources and a wealth of fantastic knowledge that's available at these institutions. So to close off, I'm going to give you one example of a project that we've done recently that was highly experimental. So this project had 3 components that I'm going to give 1 or 2 sentences on very quickly. This project was in supply chain. And the first part of this project was that we built a digital twin. That is a digital replica of a supply chain. And this involved us to simulate any number of days of distribution of goods throughout the supply chain. In a sense, you could say that this was gamifying the supply chain. We built a game out of the supply chain. And when we did this, this enabled the second part of the diagram, the middle part there, which is where we brought in AI. And we used something called reinforcement learning to solve this game of the supply chain. When and how much should I move goods along the supply chain? And this is the kind of game that the AI played. And using this method, we could gain real insights into when and how goods should be distributed along the supply chain. Finally, the picture on the right side of my diagram is that we also looked into using Unreal Engine to showcase select experiments or select scenarios in our simulation, to show the client what this actually looks like in real life. And we're looking forward to doing more similar experiments using NVIDIA Omniverse. So that's the end of my talk. I'll now hand over to Renai, who's going to talk about a particular product, which is the culmination of the innovation that we've been doing in our team.